I have been curious and a bit concerned about a particular catchphrase that is being used a lot with COVID and its incredible impact on our lives. It's this phrase, the new normal. It even has a definition in the dictionary. The current state of being, after some dramatic change has transpired, what replaces the expected, the usual, the typical state after an event occurs. The new normal encourages one to deal with current situations rather than lamenting about what could have been, or I might add, or what was. Well, I have to say that numerous unprecedented events and changes, all converging in this year in particular, certainly apply. COVID, the driver of probably the biggest changes in our world, changing everything. But the new normal? Really? Is what is happening normal? I know this is samsara, yes, but this label, and by whose definition is it normal? New normal. And who is adapting and who is not? We are in samsara, folks, and this catchphrase, the new normal, I have a feeling is human beings' attempt to try to nail down samsara by a way of the terms so that we can feel stable, secure, have some sense of predictability, and have some things under control. So how are we doing? So I put it into the search engine, and the World Economic Forum has lots of stuff about new normal. Has 3 statements that they make, and these are the folks who sponsor that big economic forum in Davos, Switzerland every year, looking at just the trends of how people are doing in the world. First, they say the new normal must not be the lens through which we examine our changed world. Number 2, normal has not worked for the majority of the world's population, so why would it start working now? And number 2, we should use our discomfort to forge a new paradigm instead of a new normal. So what is happening with this is that the language of the new normal is being deployed almost as a way to quell this uncertainty ushered in by the COVID. With no cure in sight, I mean, everybody from politicians, the media, our friends and family have been starting to perpetrate this rhetoric that imagines settling into life under this new normal. I mean, every aspect of society, whether it's government, education, politics, health, legal, environmental, everybody's using this term, trying to quell uncertainty, trying to quell unpredictability. One of the major characteristics of samsara that we are trying to nail down. But my discomfort and my concern from what I'm sensing is that the new normal discourse is sanitizing the idea that our present is okay because normal is regular. Normal is typical, is standard fare. Yes, there are public health challenges, but these issues can be managed. We accept life under the omnipresent threat of a disease as ordinary. But what exactly is normal about this pandemic? It is not normal for a society en masse to be locked down, to be isolated. But if this is normal, by definition, we are supposed to have control of the situation. I repeat, normal implies control of a situation. That with this sanitized idea, everything is fine and we're going to get used to it, accepting this morbid reality as now typical, ordinary. So what I'm saying, it's not about getting crazy about what's happening, but to look directly about what we have in front of us. And I don't know about most of you folks, but I've been having a really hard time keeping track of this new normal. All the political intrigue, our president's got COVID, we've got a crucial election coming up, all jockeying for headlines. Police violence against Black men and women, it hasn't been on maybe page 2 of the Washington Post. You know, there's things about Breonna Taylor they're still trying to figure out. Small businesses are going under in unprecedented numbers. Families can't pay their rents. Millions of people in the world are going hungry or having their first experience of it. It's not even registering. Forest fires, we've lost over 5 million acres in the West. Millions of wildlife, 500,000 people have been evacuated. 80,000 this week in just 2 counties. I saw it on page 4 of the Washington Post. are essential workers. Remember that beautiful music video? You've Done a Good Job by Alicia Keys way back when? They're not even on the front page. 20,000 Amazon and Whole Food employees have tested positive for COVID since March. That was somewhere in some corner somewhere. So we're, flooded with these events. And because we're dealing with this new normal, I'm looking at myself and saying, well, am I really practicing and working with it, or am I numbing myself, turning away, distracting myself? I know that many of us are using the Dharma. I know here in the community to try to keep ourselves balanced, to keep our hearts open, to look at this in a much bigger Dharma lens. I mean, the karma ripening individually and collectively, the disadvantages of samsara. I mean, gosh, is it not on your face now? I don't know when it would be. The dukkha of human beings as well as living beings in general. The opportunity to deepen our compassion, our love, and our equanimity. We have a powerful, powerful tool to help us. But I have to say, from what I've been reading, a lot of people are coping better than others. So allowing ourselves to cope, to deal, to balance, process, dealing with this means not normalizing our situation and quickly moving forward by giving ourselves time to process what's truly happening. I mean, something's up when you've got like a main news commentator, Judy Woodruff, who's the main commentator on PBS on Friday night, said exactly, we're not giving ourselves time to process what's happening. This is a major news commentator out there in the world. Far from describing the status quo, evoking the new normal does not allow us to deal with the totality of our present reality. So instead, it reinforces the idea that the world and our emotions should by now be pretty much settled. Surrounded by this level of uncertainty, I want to say to myself and to others is that it's okay to be a little bit out of sorts. It's okay to be a little bit concerned. It's a little bit okay to grieve a little bit. It's okay not to be comfortable with what's going on. In fact, all of us should feel uncomfortable with our present situation because the new normal describes a reality to which many do not have access. We need to look at a bigger picture here, to not forget the equanimity. The foundation for bodhicitta refers to developing an equal care and concern for everybody. Because what's happening with this framework is that this new normal is inhibiting our ability to heal ourselves, to do this together. It constrains our ability to think very big about fundamentally transforming society because society, folks, still imagines a world that only functions for the elite. This is true. And I have some tiny examples of this. So one of the popular strategies that's come up because of COVID is focusing on social distancing, PPE, sheltering in place. But to be honest, it remains an option for those with the means to fortify and to seclude themselves. Stay-at-home orders cannot be observed by more than 100 million people who have no shelter. They can't shelter in place if they don't have a roof over their heads. With the emphasis on online tools to help us to facilitate this sense of isolation, this sense of loneliness, this sense of wanting to connect, we've got Zoom and web seminars and Instagram and Skype and FaceTime, which is wonderful. But it ascribes a value with the promise of virtual engagement, ignoring the fact that almost half of the world is still offline. The developed world accounts for 80% of the people in this world that are internet, 19% of the developing or the emerging countries. They can't talk to their families. They can't Zoom their classes. They can't talk to their employers, their doctors. They have no means. This is where we need to pay attention. This very important coping skill for us during COVID is not accessible to huge portions of the people who are living in COVID as well. Then there's the issue of food. And there's two examples of India and in Nigeria. Back in March, Nigeria implemented a federal mandated lockdown for everybody. And people have taken to the streets there to protest that hunger virus is going to kill them a whole lot sooner than COVID will. People are starving. And in India, when Modi locked down the whole country, millions of people were left stranded, homeless and hungry, lost their livelihoods, and then had to walk dozens of miles home with their shirts on their back. Beyond those millions already struggling with food insecurities, they estimate that COVID could push half a billion people into poverty. And they don't have food deliveries. They don't have Amazon shipments. That is not an option for millions of hungry people in this world. And then we already kind of know this disparity, that 80% of the state health departments have released some racial demographics saying that a huge portion of our Black and Latinx communities have got the highest impact of COVID. In the state of New York alone, 75% of the essential workers are people of color, 75%. And the states who did this demographic profile, almost half of them did not explicitly include the 6.7 million Native Americans in their breakdown, and instead categorized them in the other category. Well, how are they going to get medical help if they're not even on the data sheets? So the new normal ignores these lived experiences and exacerbates already structural inequities, fostering this kind of naive, one-size-fits-all strategy, basically based on privilege. Work from home, shelter in place, get your food delivered, rather than inclusively making policies that will recognize that there's no such thing as normal, and try to understand the unique realities of very diverse populations by taking the time, the effort to collect very disparate data. That's people all over the world in very, very different situations that have that the COVID is impacting very, very differently than it is impacting us. So many people don't really know about, we don't know about certain people, and on some level, we got them off our screen. They're off our radar screen. We're not tracking them. So some of the people in therapeutic paradigms and trauma people say that it's really to be attentive to the discomfort of the current moment, to generate a new paradigm rather than a new normal. Feeling unsettled, feeling destabilized and alone can help us to really grow our compassion, our empathy with individuals who have faced systematic exclusions long ignored by society, even before COVID hit the ground, who have been uprooted, unsettled, destabilized by generations. Thus, this is a really urgent call for change. Not the new normal, but an urgent action to improve their conditions, because it's never been normal for them. There's something about this time that's an urgency of doing things very, very differently. So I want to say, as a Dharma practitioners, this is not about feeling badly or feeling guilty. Precious human life has garnered us some incredible circumstances. But for us to be able to commit ourselves to calling attention to these disparities as part of our practice of compassion, bodhicitta, and equanimity, wisdom, to support any individuals, any organizations, charities, NGOs, locally, nationally, or internationally, that are showing the inequity and are trying to understand and find a way to do something about it. And to vote for the people who have a vision of this necessary paradigm shift, not just getting to this new normal, which I feel can easily be viewed as yet another form of indifference, another form of partiality, another form of exclusion, even exploitation. And there is nothing normal about this. So to use our wisdom so as to not to succumb to more self-care and self-concern than necessary, we do need to take care of ourselves. We do need to be careful. But to keep in our mind as we go through our through this particular difficult time in samsara, is to pay attention to so many others and how are they getting through yet another one of their days. And as His Holiness has said thousands of times, probably, we have a universal responsibility on the Bodhisattva path to bring all beings into our practice, both on and off the cushion, and to care and benefit them. So in conclusion, to bring it back around to cultivating deeply our compassion, our equanimity, to see the need of inclusion with a much big Dharma lens. And we may not be able to physically do as much as we want, but to commit ourselves to our own paradigm shift, to see all beings worthy of care and love and freedom from suffering, and to give our voice to them when they need it.